The head of the Drudge Report today, I swear I read this thing today and I said, this cannot be happening, but it is. And this is literally internet companies, civil liberties groups were alarmed this spring when a U.S. Senate bill proposed literally handing the White House the power to disconnect. I'm reading from Declan McCullough. Folks, I didn't say it right. I apologize to who this person is. Anyway, it's a good point. Anyway, so this spring, when the Senate proposed the White House, pay close attention. You know, for all of you that have been saying, well, you're overplaying this czar thing, Hannity. You know, you guys keep going over the deep end. You just expect the worst. You're not giving the anointed one a fair chance. Now, we've given him a fair chance, and look what he's done. He's spent us into oblivion. He tried to ram health care down our throats. He spent more time picking out a dog for his kids than he did, examining the health care bill. And, but in the world of Obama mania, you can't have any criticism for the anointed one. Anyway, so this was literally would provide the White House power to disconnect private sector computers from the Internet. Well, there is a revised version of that bill that Senator Jay Rockefeller, West Virginia Democrat. I'm going to be in West Virginia on Labor Day at a big, huge event. I'll tell you about it in the days to come. But they spent months drafting this bill behind closed doors. CNET News obtained a copy. A 55-page draft, which still appears to permit the President of the United States of America to seize temporary control of private sector networks during a so-called cybersecurity emergency. Now, Hannity, it's the middle of an emergency. You wouldn't, deny the President the power to do what's necessary to preserve power. Come on, they wouldn't use it for nefarious or evil purposes of some kind. That's your problem, Hannity. You don't trust your government enough. Do you trust your government enough? Do you not think that this could be an abuse of power? Do we not have a Constitution, ladies and gentlemen? Does the Constitution not have First Amendment rights? Do those First Amendment rights, does the government have the right to infringe upon them? Now, the new version of this bill is going to allow the president to declare a cybersecurity emergency relating to non-governmental computer networks. Now, pay close attention, non-governmental. Well, let me see. I guess that means the Drudge Report, WorldNet Daily, and maybe Hannity.com. Networks, and do what's necessary to respond to the threat. Other sections of the proposal include a federal certification for cybersecurity professionals and a requirement that a certain computer system and systems and networks in the private sector be managed by people who have been awarded that license. Now, I think that redraft, while improved, remains troubling due to its vagueness, said Larry Clinton, the president of the Internet Security Alliance, which counts representatives of Verizon, Nortel, and Carnegie Mellon University on its board. It's unclear what authority Senator Rockefeller thinks is necessary over the private sector. Unless that is clarified, we cannot properly analyze, let alone support the bill. Representatives of other large Internet and telecommunications companies expressed concerns about the bill in teleconference with Rockefeller aides this week, but were not immediately available for comment here. Spokesman for Rockefeller declined to comment on the record, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, when you understand, the original bill claimed it was vital to protect national cybersecurity. We've got to protect critical infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, folks, it's always in the name of security. The government's out there to protect you. And the Rockefeller proposal plays out a broader concern in D.C. about the government's role in all of this. In May, the president acknowledged that the government is not as prepared as it should be to respond to disruption, and announced that the new cybersecurity coordinator position, another czar position, is going to be created inside the White House staff. 3 months later, that post, like many others, remains empty. So this revised legislation seeks to reshuffle the way the government addresses the topic. Now, folks, I want to paint a picture for you of, the kind of America Barack Obama and his government-loving congressional allies would create if they continue to run Washington in the years ahead. Now, just think about this. Stand back and look at the broader picture here. They'd use the government-run health care system, as we pointed out, to access and distribute your income tax information. Now, that's all part of it. We read this on the air yesterday. they would use the government-run health care to create a new database about all your private health care issues. Well, everybody but me, I got away for 8 years. I didn't want anybody finding out about those things. They would use the FCC to kill conservative talk radio, and now they see that they would authorize the president at a whim to declare a cybersecurity emergency, non-defined, relating to, quote, non-governmental computer networks and do what's necessary to respond to the threat. Now, again, this was, broken by Declan McCullough at CNET News. It also reports that other sections of the proposal include a federal certification program for cybersecurity professionals. Now, follow me with this, and a requirement that certain computer systems and networks in the private sector ultimately be managed by people who have been awarded that, quote, license. Jeez. Now, remember the left, they used to talk about George Bush's violation of our civil liberties. We're all worked up about the violation. We interrogated those terrorists. We were too rough with them. We threatened them. We scared them. We threatened to drown them. Meanwhile, we got more information to create more safety and security than we ever dreamed of, but putting all that aside here. Now we hear next to nothing about Obama and Rockefeller and Pelosi and Reid and the rest of them and their designs to limit a basic constitutional liberty, a basic constitutional right, which is, the First Amendment. I know it's just simple 101 basic stuff here, folks. Now, you can use whatever, description you want, but it sounds to me like it's, an open opportunity to suspend the Constitution of the United States. Some might even go as far as to say, well, it kind of sounds like martial law is imposed at the whim if the government decides that this is a cybersecurity emergency here. Now, folks, if you remember, how many people were outraged, how many people were angry, how many people were upset, how many people, spoke out about, well, at least conservatives did, about shutting down of the Internet. Remember during the mini-Iranian revolution that was going on before the crackdown after Ahmadinejad got beat and stole the election. But, of course, we'll still talk to Ahmadinejad. We'll talk to any dictator. It doesn't matter. We understand the importance of this, and a government that can do this. By the way, who's going to define what a cybersecurity emergency is? How do we define it? Who defines it? Who's going to take, the FCC is in charge of our cell phones, in charge of the radio airwaves. But if this is implemented, do you realize, ladies and gentlemen, that is, by definition, a suspension of constitutional government and basic constitutional freedoms and basic constitutional rights? There's no other way to describe this. That's all that would be. It would be basically at a whim, the government. And so for those of you that love the government, suffer from government derangement syndrome, maybe you think, well, Hannity, you're not thinking this through. There might be a moment, an opportunity where we need to do this. Not without the approval of the American people, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, these unaccountable, unelected czars, they don't go through the normal nominating process. They have enormous power and enormous control over your life. And I'll give you an example. Alliance Defense Fund had an article out. One of their attorneys had to file a motion in New Hampshire in court on Monday, asking the court to reconsider and stay their decision, ordering a 10-year-old homeschooled girl into government-run schools. Apparently the person making the recommendations to the court agreed the child is well-liked, the child is social, the child interacts with her peers, the child is academically promising, the child is intellectually at a superior grade level, and that it's clear that the homeschooling has more than kept up with the academic requirements of the public school system. Nonetheless, he proposed the Christian girl be ordered into the government-run school after considering, quote, the impact of her religious beliefs on her interaction with others. Now, folks, there are people, I don't know what their religious faith is in this particular case, but I don't really care. It's none of our business.